The Kaelthi Dominion had catalogued humanity as a curiosity 3 decades before the war began. Their scouts noted a species that built cities out of glass and steel, argued endlessly in public forums, and somehow still managed to send machines to every rock in their solar system. The Dominion's analysts filed humanity under low priority, monitor only. Humans didn't have gravity drives. They didn't have plasma lances. Their largest warship, according to Dominion intelligence, was a lumbering gray hull called the USS Warden's Reach, powered by fusion torches that looked, by Dominion standards, almost embarrassingly primitive. So when the Dominion Armada, 41 warships strong, led by the flagship Vas Andari, entered the Kepler corridor to correct a human mining colony's refusal to pay tribute, nobody expected resistance. Least of all from one ship. Captain Elena Reyes stood on the bridge of the Warden's Reach, watching the tactical display bloom with red contact icons. 41 hostile signatures. Her own fleet, one ship. "Confirm count," she said quietly. "Confirmed, Captain," said Lieutenant Commander Tom Bradley from the sensor station, his voice flat with disbelief. 41 capital ships. They're not even bothering to spread out. They're coming in formation like it's a parade. Behind Reyes, seated at the engineering override console, Chief Engineer Dana Whitfield allowed herself a small, tired smile. She had spent the last 4 years of her life building something the Dominion had no model for in their databases, because it had never existed before. Not in any space-faring civilization's history. Not until humanity got desperate enough to try it. "They think we're a border picket," Reyes said. "They think this is going to be over in 10 minutes. "With respect, Captain," Whitfield said, "they're right about the 10 minutes. 3 years earlier, the Warden's Reach had been scheduled for decommissioning. She was old, slow by Dominion standards, and her fusion drives were considered a joke by every alien delegation that toured Earth's shipyards. When the Dominion first made contact, demanding tribute, citing humanity's primitive, technological standing, their ambassadors had barely glanced at the Warden's Reach docked in orbit. One Dominion attaché had reportedly laughed and called her a tugboat with delusions. What none of them knew, what Earth's governments had kept buried under 100 layers of classification, was that the Warden's Reach had become the testbed for Project Anvil, a desperate, decade-long human research program built on a simple, brutal insight. Humanity couldn't out-tech the Dominion's shield harmonics or their gravity weapons. Not yet. But humans were very, very good at one thing every other species in the galaxy had stopped doing centuries ago. They were good at building things to fail safely, then use the failure as a weapon. Dana Whitfield's team had spent years reverse engineering scraps of Dominion tech recovered from a scout ship that had crashed in the Pacific after a system malfunction. They found something extraordinary. Dominion shields ran on a resonant frequency lattice, elegant and efficient, and crucially, standardized across every ship the Dominion had ever built. It was a strength. It let their fleets link shields together into a single interlocking wall of energy no conventional weapon could crack. It was also, Whitfield realized after 14 months of failure and 2 lost researchers, a fatal weakness. A lattice that interlocks can also be inverted. The Warden's Reach wasn't equipped with better shields, better armor, or faster engines. She was equipped with a single, ship-length resonance emitter called the Anvil coil, built into her spine like a spinal cord of hardened alloy and quantum capacitors. It didn't fire a beam. It didn't launch a missile. It broadcast a corrupted echo of the Dominion's own shield harmonic, a discordant, cascading frequency that didn't break through their shields. It turned their shields against each other. "Captain, they're hailing us," said Lieutenant Priya Anand from Communications. "It's their fleet commander. Wants to accept our surrender before we, quote, embarrass ourselves further." "Put him through," Reyes said. The Dominion commander's projection filled the display, tall, gray-skinned, adorned in ceremonial plating that glittered even through the static of translated comms. "Human vessel," he said, his translated voice carrying an unmistakable note of boredom. "Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Your colony's debt will be paid in labor contracts. This need not be violent." Reyes glanced at Whitfield, who gave a small nod. The coil was charged. It had been for 6 minutes. Commander, Reyes said, we're not going to surrender. But I appreciate you giving us the time to get set up. The Dominion commander frowned, clearly parsing the sentence for a threat and finding none worth taking seriously. Then you will be destroyed. The channel cut. All hands, Reyes said, her voice carrying through the ship, calm as still water. Brace for engagement. Dana on my mark. Standing by, Whitfield said, hands hovering over the console like a pianist above the keys of the only instrument that mattered. The Dominion Armada began its attack run, 41 ships converging their shields into the interlocking formation that had shattered 100 worlds' worth of resistance fleets across 1,000 years of Dominion conquest. It was beautiful, in a cold way, a lattice of blue-white energy stitching itself between the ships until the entire Armada glowed like a single vast organism. That's what we want, Whitfield murmured. Come on. Link up. Link all the way up. The Dominion opened fire, 100 plasma lances lancing toward the lone human ship. The Warden's reach shuddered as her own comparatively primitive deflectors screamed under the load, alarms cascading across every station. Shields at 60%, Bradley called out. 50. 42. Hold, Reyes said, eyes locked on the tactical display, watching the Dominion shield lattice pulse and lock, fully interlinked now. All 41 ships bound into one shared harmonic field to maximize their defensive coverage against the single, insignificant target before them. They're fully linked, Whitfield said, and for the first time in 3 years of testing, her voice wasn't tired. It was electric. Captain, they're fully linked. Fire the coil. Whitfield's hand came down. The Anvil coil didn't produce a visible beam. There was no dramatic flash, no roaring plasma bolt streaking across space. Instead, the Warden's reach's spine lit with a dull violet shimmer, and the corrupted harmonic pulse rippled outward, not as a weapon aimed at any single ship, but as a whisper injected directly into the Dominion's own shared shield frequency. For half a second, nothing happened. Then the lattice began to scream. Each Dominion ship's shield generator, designed to synchronize perfectly with its neighbors, suddenly received a corrupted signal claiming to be part of that same synchronized network, a phantom node feeding back distorted resonance into the entire chain. The shields didn't just fail. They fought each other, each generator trying to compensate for phantom interference from ships that were, in truth, betraying the network without knowing it. Energy that should have dispersed harmlessly instead cascaded backward into the projectors that generated it. 41 Dominion ships lit up from within, one after another, in a chain reaction of catastrophic feedback that took less than 11 seconds from first pulse to final detonation. The Va Sandari went first, her hull splitting along seams that had never been designed to contain an implosion of her own shield energy. Then the ships flanking her. Then the ones behind them, the failure racing outward through the lattice faster than any Dominion officer could issue an order to disengage. On the bridge of the Warden's Reach, the crew watched in silence as 41 points of light bloomed and died across the tactical display, the debris field already beginning to drift outward in a slow, silent bloom against the stars. Bradley finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. Captain? Enemy fleet status is 0. Nobody cheered. It didn't feel like a moment for cheering. Reyes stood at the center of her bridge, watching the wreckage of an empire's arrogance scatter into vacuum, and let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding for 3 years. Log the engagement, she said quietly. Time 14 seconds. Enemy losses 41. Hours 0. Whitfield leaned back from her console, hands trembling slightly, and allowed herself, finally, the smile she'd been saving. Send a message to Dominion Command, Reyes said. Tell them the tugboat says hello. 3 days later, when a second Dominion delegation arrived under a flag of parley, they didn't send warships. They sent negotiators. And for the first time since first contact, they didn't call humanity primitive. They called them dangerous. Which, in the end, was so much better.